Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. Over the past few weeks, markets have been whipped around by AI hype cycles, rate cut whiplash, and a surge in AI-generated research flooding Twitter, Substack, and trading platforms. Even professional investors are saying it's harder than ever to know what's real signal and what's just machine amplified noise. Today's guest has been inside that pressure cooker, building data systems at billion-dollar hedge funds, and now spends his time backing founders trying to simplify investing instead of overwhelming it. My guest today, Matt Ober, managing partner at Social Leverage. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very interested in your history, where you come from and how you actually got to where you are. Talk to me a bit about your days inside hedge funds. Like, how did you end up there? What did you go and study? That type of thing.
Yeah, so funny enough, studied just finance in state school, so I didn't go to a big Ivy League school or anything, and landed at Bloomberg out of college. So I started at Bloomberg in San Francisco, early
Cool.
days. I was during the financial crisis of 07, 08.
I was about to
and,
say which one, but it should have been 2008.
Yeah, 2008. Bloomberg at that time made everybody start on the phones. So answering the 800 number, whether you worked at Harvard, you went to Harvard, or you went to Chico State, where I went to school. So a bunch of us just answering the phones, answering any question.
Wow.
Moved into the analytics department. They taught us the markets. I mean, a fantastic training program, 4+ years there, just learning everything about markets. I focused on derivatives and the equity markets. Ended up getting my first job in the hedge fund at World Quant, which is a quantitative hedge fund.
Yes.
I applied for like 2 years to hedge funds, finally moved to New York and got a job with them from a Craigslist posting of all places.
Wow.
And interviewed there. World Quant at the time was, 50, 60, 70 people maybe, based in Old Greenwich. Igor Tulchinsky, the founder, had a thesis: if we could consume more data than anybody in the world, we could manage more money. He felt talent was global. Hire the best PhDs, let them live in their home countries, and give them access to more data than anybody else in the world. And we could find patterns and create human and systematic prediction or forecasts.
Yes.
And so I was brought in as the first non-PhD, to buy as much data in the world and figure out how to automate all that. So we went on a run for 6 years of spending hundreds of millions of dollars buying data. I would travel the world from Russia
right?
to China.
Pre-AI. Sorry, pre-AI.
Pre-AI. Yeah, we used to call it like
crazy.
generative alpha.
Okay.
And Igor was always how can we do 100x more every single year?
Okay.
So we went from 60, 70 people to 600. We opened up offices in like 20+ countries, and every month I was in a different country. And at that time I met Howard Lindzon, who's my now partner at Social Leverage. He had started StockTwits,
so cool,
and we were using StockTwits data for systematically trading.
Yes.
And I started World Quant's Ventures arm with the guy who's still there running it, Steve Lau, and we invested in companies alongside Social Leverage. And after like 6 years, I was approached by a recruiter, and for about a year I started meeting with Dan Loeb and Third Point, and ultimately they hired me as chief data scientist. I mean, I think everybody that knows me, I'm not a data scientist by background, but I think the vision there was come in and help us be better at using data and technology for making investment decisions. I always say dumb it down, like, how can you invest in Starbucks if you don't look at app and credit card data?
Yeah.
Right? Like, the data's there. There's no excuse. So I came in as chief data scientist, run the data science team, which really in their mind meant run risk, data, technology, everything that wasn't like a core analyst, which there was only 20 on the investment team. Everything else was, quote unquote, under the data science remit. So it was great. It was a lot of work to change the culture, right?
Okay.
You have guys making 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year that then have a data science team telling them that like, it's not a good idea to make this investment, or, hey, the data says this is the bad idea. So
it's like an NFL,
a lot of culture
right?
change.
It's sort of, to me, it's like the NFL. It's like you've you see more and more stats coming to the NFL, and stat guys saying, "Oh,
Yep.
you don't need to go for it on 4th and 1 because this is a percentage type play." And then you've got coaches like Dan Campbell would just say, "Fuck it, we'll run it." It's sort of that
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah, NBA and well, baseball's always had
Yeah,
analytics, right?
baseball
Like
always
I always
had it.
used to
Yeah.
say, World Quant used to lose some of the best portfolio managers to the Major League Baseball. Guys make a ton of money, and then all the baseball teams want to hire them. Remember, the Red Sox used to hire
Crazy.
people from World Quant,
Yeah.
right? And then the Oakland
Interesting.
A's. So we've been seeing this forever. I think in the traditional hedge fund world, like it's almost one of those things. Like I think, like if I was an allocator, how are you going to invest in Starbucks and like you don't have a data science guy that can look at credit card data? Or like, you're investing in Google and Alibaba. And I remember Dan saying this, like, how do we make these investments, but we don't use anything internally? And he asked
Okay.
me when he hired me, he's like, how are we going to use AI? And that was like,
What year
seven,
was
eight
that?
years ago. And I think
Oh, okay.
that was 8 or 9 years ago. And I think I said to him, I was
Machine
like, we don't even
learning.
have data.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was a little forward on it. I was like, we don't even have data. I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
was probably the only one that was like, we're not using AI.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have like any process here. So you can just throw AI on nothing. So listen, it was great. Activism, structured credit, private markets there. We did it all. And then post COVID, I joined the guys that I've known since day one. Howard, Tom, and Gary at Social Leverage, which
Yes.
I was actually an LP in their fund.
Okay.
They were the first investors in Robinhood and eToro and, customer with a K. And so like seed stage investing,
I want to
it's
run it back
where
a
I'm at.
bit. You running
Yeah.
around buying data. How would that even work? Because it's the first time I've ever heard or spoken to someone that actually did that specific job.
Yeah. This was early before there were alternative data, vendors, before there was data strategists at hedge funds.
Mm.
We were buying obviously data from S&P and FactSet and Bloomberg, but we were also, reaching out to anybody that we thought was sitting on unique information and data, right? Like if we're going to trade the Korean markets, who has
Yes.
the most information about Korean consumers? We would think about import export data. How does import export information get collected? Where does it get collected? Like if you think about each individual sector, like if you're in the automobile sector and you
Mm-hmm.
work at Ford, you probably get, research reports and information about the automobile industry and your competitors and so forth. So you just
Mm-hmm.
had to put your hat on and pretend you were inside of that type of, sector or organization
Yes.
and become an expert in that space and buy everything so you could be smarter than they are, right? That was
Yes.
always our key. Like
Yes.
put your hat on, think about you're working with inside this company or sector. Where do they get information from? Get the same stuff and be more insightful than they are. So in a quantitative space, automate it. In a
Mm-hmm.
fundamental world, it's if I'm going to have a sit down with the CEO of Rivian, I want to tell him something he doesn't know about his own business, right?
Mm.
That was the ultimate measure of success for me. Can we walk in the room with a management team and tell them something about their business they don't know because we're better at analyzing the data than they are?
Well, how would they react? How would they take it if you tell them something that they didn't know about their own business?
I think the right management team is like, I want these guys as investors in my company. The wrong ones are going to be combative and probably worried when you're coming from like a third point type of firm that you're going to become an activist on their firm, right? Like or constructivist, however you kind of,
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to think
Yeah.
about it.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so then you land at Social Leverage, and you mentioned a couple of the companies. One that you left out, which I'm a big fan of, is Beehive. For those that
Yes.
don't know, the newsletter guys, I say newsletter quite loosely, but I think what they are building is the creator economy. Very interesting, and it's very insightful to me that you guys are backing them. Um, because it shows me that you are very forward thinking and where everything is going. So, for those that don't know, I walk into you in an elevator, 30-second pitch. What is social leverage?
Social Leverage is a seed stage investment venture capital firm.
Okay.
We invest at the earliest stage, fintech, vertical SaaS, vertical AI. That's like our bread and butter focus.
Mm.
Media, obviously, with Beehive. We are a first check to somebody starting a company. And we're the type of firm where if we can be helpful on a daily, weekly basis, it's the right fit for us. My background more in financial markets and data, that's where I'm going to spend 90% of my time. You mentioned Beehive.
Yes.
Howard Lindzen, my partner, has been an avid writer for years. Met Tyler Dank, the founder of
Awesome.
Beehive,
Awesome.
and he was like, if Tyler can convince him to move to Beehive, then like it makes sense. Fast forward to today, I write my newsletter there. Howard does. We have our firm's newsletter there. All of our startups use Beehive. I mean, it's great, right? I mean,
Yes.
everybody's putting out content these days. You know that if you don't own your own audience, you're just sitting and hoping and praying that, Facebook doesn't start to charge you or Instagram doesn't shut you off or YouTube doesn't kick you off their platform. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's the same reason we invested in a company called PunchUp. Danny
Okay.
Frankel worked at Facebook, said the same thing to the comedians and soon to be other live performers. Like, if you don't know who your fans are, if you don't own their email, you
Yes.
could be kicked off YouTube or Instagram tomorrow. How do you get
Yes.
in touch with them? How do you tell them where you're touring? How do you better figure out where to tour? So we're a big believer in email.
Do people come to you and pitch, or is it a question of you do research as well? Because I take it you've got a lot of networking experience. You talked about reaching out to people in Korea and the Asian markets. Is always a mix of both.
99% of our investments are inbound from like warm introductions.
Okay.
Like we'll look at cold emails that we get
Okay.
if it really sparks our interest. But like if somebody really wants to pitch an investor, the best way is to find somebody connected with them or get an introduction. I
Yes.
think that's the value of social leverage, leveraging our social network. We have, we have institutional investors, but we have lots of family offices, high net worth, ex-founders, people that are just passionate that want to like, they met somebody, they're like, oh, they've got to meet social leverage. That's the firm for them, right? So I think those are the best introductions and the best type of investments for us.
And I gathered from this little conversation that you are very fond of data. That's to you is
I am
very,
a big
very
believer.
important.
That is correct. I mean, it's been since my days at Bloomberg, right? So
Yes.
for better or for worse, that's been how I've been trained since my first days out of college.
It's very interesting to hear someone say and to say and speak so passionately about email in a time where we were almost led to believe that email is dead or that traditional communication is dead. And now here you are, one of the biggest VC firms saying we believe in email. That to me is very interesting.
I mean, if you think about it, it's the one thing you can still control. I mean, listen, you can't spam people with emails, right? Obviously,
Yes, yes.
you can get blocked. But
They
like, if
will
you think about
unsubscribe or whatever. Yeah.
right, but Beehive is managing giving you the ability to manage your, subscribers' emails. If you think about PunchUp, like
Yeah.
it's giving comedians a way to, track their fan base. I think about how to better organize my own emails. It's, another form of my CRM, right?
Okay.
My personal versus my,
Yes.
work stuff versus maybe a side hustle. How do I
Yes.
organize all this type of stuff? So
Yes.
yeah, I still think email is the winner and I don't see it going away.
So one of the things about AI that I'm interested in, or that I'm talking to people about, is this whole alternative data and sentiment analysis and things like that. Is that something that you are looking at specifically, and or what else in this AI landscape is of interest to you?
Listen, I think alternative data at this point is just data. I think we branded everything alternative for so long just because it wasn't like, in the financial world, if it wasn't the income statement and balance sheet and price and volume, it was quote unquote alternative. At
Fair
this point,
enough.
it's just data. I think, listen, sentiment's always been there. I think StockTwits, which, Howard started and I sit on the
Yes.
board of, and he's still chairman, like best sentiment in the world, right? What people are talking about and trading. And I think we're going to see more of that with Robinhood doing their own social, and prediction markets are the new form of media and what's trending and sentiment. I think like all of that in data is exciting. I
Yeah.
think consumption-based data is,
Consumption
where I
based,
spend a lot of my thought.
which
It's
would
really the
be
revenue model around
okay.
data.
Which
How do we pay for data?
how do we pay for data? Okay. In
Right now,
terms,
people pay
yeah.
for data as a fixed price. The world is moving to consumption based, right? Like me and you would pay a couple dollars, a couple cents for an answer. in
Yes.
ChatGPT
Yes.
if ChatGPT didn't have access to that data.
Yes.
The data vendors and the data owners are going to start to think about flipping the model of how do we charge people on a consumption basis, right? How can we all have our own wallets that we give to our AI agents that go out and buy things for us based off of the consumption we need? Maybe today after this call, you want to go do a bunch of research about what I've said, and your AI agent doesn't have access to any data about that, but it has a wallet that it can spend up to $15 a day. It's going to go out there and buy information. I don't want to pay for PitchBook for private markets information. But after this call, I want to think about 2-3 companies. I pay 25 cents for that, $1 for this, but I'm not going to pay 50 grand annually for something I might not need or use, but I might spend 75 grand in the year for something I could have bought in a fixed amount. I think the world is moving to that.
Yes, so interesting that because a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was in a conversation with someone where I started to think about services that AI agents will need going forward. And starting to think about AI agents like a person or something that will need insurance, access to data, money, something, and to go and do whatever it is that it needs to go do, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I think the AI agents and the wallet infrastructure has been there's a lot of money going into that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thinking about that. And I think, how we consume information, the web, everything's kind of changing, right? Maybe we're going to spend less time surfing the internet, but our agents will have to pay to get to different places. And so I think that if I think about what's exciting to me in data, a lot of things about, the moats are coming down for the biggest data owners, but also the flip side of that is the revenue models are going to be changing. And I think that's scary for the incumbents, but a big opportunity for the up and comers.
Big opportunity for someone that's maybe building and looking for a VC partner.
Right, exactly. I mean, listen, every VC likes recurring revenue, but you got to be bold and consumption-based revenue. It's a little bit sporadic, but it'd be nice to wake up one morning and you make a few $1 million because some AI agents needed to buy data, right?
Yeah, love it. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining me today and getting to know Social Leverage. If any founders or listeners want to go and get in contact with you guys and find out more about what it is that you guys do, where can they do that?
SocialLeverage.com. You can reach out to us there. I'm on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Connect with me there. Those are probably the easiest places.
We'll leave all the links in the comments. Thanks so much for joining me today. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
His word to the wise, his hand healing on the 7th day, his love wearing no disguise. But some say that you make. They draw lines where love stands. They raise fists at his hands. Still he walks through the fire. Still he heals the tired. You can run